Okay, Ida, you have been involved with arts education in Penang for a very long time. So can you tell us how you started with the first involvement, which I believe was Stop the Go, was it?
No,
Okay.
it was much earlier than that. I think I just got back in 94, 95. You were away, but then we reconnected, and Janet has been my teacher for children theatre in the university. So when I left, of course, I didn't continue with the children theatre. I was away for, degree in performance and dance. So when I came back, it was a good connection back with Janet to, for her to use me again in terms of, developing my skills in terms of bringing dance into her process towards arts in education. And I think prior to us starting up with this conflict resolution workshop research, I started teaching classes at the university a bit as a guest teacher, and I started to know the students that she was teaching. So at that time, I mean, just from that relationship, we started she asked me if I would be interested in this project, and it was led by her and Dr. Latif at that time. And we included dance, drama, and music and arts. Yes. Yeah. So we went out, could we call it auditioning, or calling in, children, primary school students. And we had about, let me say, 3 months, the first stage of that conflict resolution program, 3 months where I worked with the kids, and of course, being introduced, I wasn't introduced into the research directly, but Janet was always assisting and guiding. We had papers and documents to fill in, so dance was purely brought in as a skill into the program, but at the same time as she's guiding, she was teaching me how to look at the conflict, when we are using dance to kind of pull out or draw out from the children stories that are related to school environment or family environment, but we actually focus more on school because it was safer to deal with, those kind of issues. And I think there was a bit of the second stage of that process. There was always this confusion or block between how to put dance and this conflict resolution together. I mean, because we were both, well, maybe Janet was more, what do you call it, experience in it. I was the learning person there. So it was trying to find my own approaches to draw out issues from children just by improvisation, so you have to always think what are the tasks to give them, what would be the most easiest way to, because children don't talk easily, they don't tell you, and so we had to put down and question, okay, what shall we do in play and improvisation so that these issues come out naturally as they choreograph and improvise the issues, and that was always a learning thing. At the same time, it was ongoing. It wasn't, based on other experience teachers, probably they are able to say, okay, we're going to use this technique and this technique, but at that time, there wasn't a technique for us to refer to, so we were making it up as we were going, and so that was the stage one. And then we went to Australia and actually presented that whole process. It came out very well. The children came out with stories about school situation, and I kind of put it all in a composition, in a choreography, where they were included in actually devising it, choosing their own music, because it was a big group, so you can't really deal with individual, and that was another block that I found, if you're going to ask me my experience, that that block is that we cannot deal with each individual problem, which I learned after that, learning and reading up about movement therapy and all that, that should have led to that, that you then talk to the individual and ask them, what did you learn from this? And, how did it heal or change or transform them? But we did not take it to that level. So, I think that, that was one experience that I think we didn't continue. It would have been good for me if I wanted to develop more on this. So we took it only into performance. That means after they've devised it, create, and kind of talk about the content, and they're very happy and all that. So it's a full program where they find a completion in the end by performing it. And actually then the realization, oh, that was how we could do this and make it into an artistic performance. So in a way, that whole, it encompassed the whole educational process was complete, I think, as a program. Then it took to stage 2. Somehow there was this thing that we decided dance couldn't continue. Yeah, we don't know why, but it just so happened that stage 2, and that's why when Stop, Look, Go came, I wasn't fully in the beginning when you started with that idea. I wasn't there fully. She called me in just as a choreographer, if I can remember. Is that right? Yes. So there was
So wait, just to go backwards a little bit. Right at the beginning, why were you interested to work in this way with children? I mean, you were a professional dancer. You had been performing in the US already. And you came back and then you wanted to work with children. Why?
I mean, my program with Janet and Elias in university, she triggered that, interest already in me. So I wanted to kind of reconnect with that again because I felt that, I missed it. I enjoyed it. And she also gave me A all the time because I was a good teacher. You know what I mean? And I didn't get that chance to do dance education. So I thought that, and a big part of me, although I went more into dance, big part of me starting up at USM was very much in theater also. So I wanted to continue that. I didn't go out to the States to do theater because I can't speak so well and I can't learn script so good. so I went into dance, but then, I came back and I want to connect with theater again. And
so in the next project, when somehow or other it was decided that dance was not part of the process and you came in as choreographer, how did you feel about that?
I think we kind of agreed. I cannot remember why it was, but maybe because it was me who was saying that I feel that, that if there were issues that arise where the children are not happy or, I cannot help solve it. And I felt that I haven't learned enough in terms of that to lead on. That could be one, possibly. 2, it was probably because we were so much skill-orientated, so we were like, no, you. So the whole issue became diluted. Working with the children, and because it became more choreography and dance, so I feel that was the block. So I think I talked to Janet also, I wanted time to kind of learn how not to be so much a choreographer, but also be more, balancing between issue and performance.
Let's just switch over to Xiaofeng. So your entry into this whole world of arts education was via Respect, was it?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So can you just tell us how and why?
Okay. I was actually invited by the co-actor to perform in Respect. And my friend Conway, he said that there is this director in USM that she couldn't find a student to work with her, a female student, because she was too garang. So, so I said, okay, what the heck? Okay, let's do it. So then I realized that I'm actually working with a neighbor because she was my neighbor. So yeah, that's how it started. And yeah, and also because coming from a Chinese school, Chinese educated school, um, to do something related to sex education is something completely very new to me. So I got really, really excited when I heard about the project. So that's how I
How
got
old were
involved.
you?
I was 19. 19.
It's that age. Chop, huh? Ida, how old were you when you came back from the US and started on this one?
Oh,
24
24,
or 5.
25, yeah.
So it was a very, very new experience to me because it was my very first time working on theatre in education, which I completely had no idea at the time. And I must say that it is quite fun to work with Janet as a director and an actor. Yeah, I mean, I heard people saying that she was very strict and then, you got no room to improvise and all that, which I felt, at that time I felt it was totally wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I actually got total freedom to improvise. And yeah, and I really enjoy working with Janet. Yeah, and of course I got traumatized in the process because yeah, I was not prepared to listen to the stories from the children when we were performing the project in the orphanage homes and all that. And when the rape victims cry and all that, I was really shocked. And then I think I feedback that to you, yeah, at that time that I think I couldn't take it. Yeah, but we continued the project until it ended.
So, what do you think are the most impactful experiences from that first project that made you stay on with arts education for so long till now, and have also impacted your other work as a performer, as a human being? Yeah.
When I worked on the project, I started to realize that actually theater can be something like an agent for change. And I felt very rewarding doing it. So I continued the program with Janet. Um, and of course, after that, after Respect, um, she was looking for a team of people to organize the YTL Arts Festival. And I was in the team. And then after that, after YTL Arts Festivals, and she was looking for a project coordinator for her new program, Anak-Anak Kota program. And at that time, we couldn't find a suitable name for it, so she called it Arts in the City. And I got really, really excited when I heard about it, and then I continued working with Janet.
So, we'll talk about those in the next slot. Theatre is a tool for change. How do you think it changed your own life? Not those, the children and the audiences, no, but for yourself.
I think I was too young to think about it at that time, yeah. But now, yeah, I actually, I felt the same way, I feel the same way as Ida, that, the arts actually create an open door for children and for adults, even artists, yeah, to do something, to explore a deeper side of yourself, and then somehow it also provides a closure to something emotionally. For me, personally, I think it has completely changed my impression of how theater is, conducted, or how theater is coordinated or performed. Because when I was with Janet, there was a lot of this interactive, how to say it? Yeah, participatory act, which I have not encountered in my life. And it actually helps a lot when I was doing a lot of my own performance with another theatre groups.
Janet, last thoughts just on this particular phase, these two projects. Last
on
thoughts.
these two projects? No, I don't have any last thoughts. I was just listening to this because she was a Zhao Xingjiang, very young performer with Zhao Xingjiang before. So I didn't realize that.
Award-winning performer.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't realize
I remember
that
seeing her in KL and go, my God, who is this girl?
the two styles are really very different. I didn't realize that, yeah.
Okay. So now we're going to look at the YTP Penang, that's the Young Theatre Program in Penang, and Heritage Hebo. So maybe we start with Janet to just give a context of the shift of the type of work.
Okay, so basically, this is a big shift where even though I was located in Penang already, but I really wanted to ground myself in Penang. So I had been traveling monthly or whatever to KL and doing Theatre Muda in Kuala Lumpur. But this is where we really wanted to set up a team and do work in Penang. But the background to this wanting to ground ourselves in a place was because we had spent quite some time in Georgetown, and the World Heritage Site had become a huge conflict issue. And we were applying for the status for World Heritage Site. And the big argument about the World Heritage Site was heating up. And there was also the state government and federal government making a decision to end rent control. So in 2002, thousands of people were evicted from their homes in Georgetown. And since we are issue-based theatre workers, we switched to becoming cultural workers, or me especially. I really made a conscious switch to become a cultural worker. And I was very interested to address the issue of eviction in Georgetown, especially with children in Georgetown. And so it was something that was between adult and children. So there was adult work going on and children's work going on, but all heritage related. But at the same time, we kept some trajectory of the old Theatre Muda, which is arts classes, being in a studio format, learning skills on visual, dance, music, etc. So the two were kind of kept parallel.
Also, I think the other shift was where you all were performing. Whereas previously in schools, halls, auditorium type, and now it was more on the streets. Yeah, that was a big shift because, yeah, it's a huge logistic shift from a production point of view. Okay, so basically looking at three projects, which are Red and Gold Shoe, Auntie Uncle Stories, and the multi-arts workshops. Maybe, Ida, can you talk about your involvement in whichever ones you were involved in? And I guess together, like, you can talk about your involvement, and experiences, both positive and less, and takeaways.
Well, I mean, Red and Gold Shoe, yeah, we shifted. So from the conflict resolution type work, we went into offering a musical program and still wanting to work with, I mean, as Janet said, working with children from the city. So we were going from schools and involving, calling out, young people from the city to be part of this project, musical project. It was meaning, we were going to do a musical performance and teach them the skills. So we split up really clearly. Dance, focus on the dance children, and music and singing was separated, and drama was separate. So we had like at least, again, 3 months usually about that kind of 3 months, and 3 instructors going side by side, 3 different studios, but ongoing, and along at the same time, Janet as a director was working on the script. I think that was the first, we did a workshop of Red and Gold first, where the outcome was to try different scenes and see how music, dance, and drama could collaborate. And it's the first time we're back together to work between Janet, myself, and Sui Beng. Yeah.
And it was quite product oriented, right? This one, Red and Go True.
Well, that's what it looks like at the end. But actually, the children, the actors who were involved, the actors, so I was in handling the acting section, they actually went into Beach Street, into one of the warehouses, and so it's a long lane with a lot of squatters living at the end of the lane, and it's hidden from public view. And there was a whole, I don't know what you call it, like a collective of Indian Muslim families. So this was just before the eviction. So they were all ultimately evicted. And they were living like a small, how do you say? Like a little kampong.
A kampong.
In a city village.
In a city, yeah, it's an urban village.
Correct.
And they studied this small urban village for, I don't know, weeks and weeks, observing people, getting to know them and all. So all the design and the characters were completely borrowed from this inner city scenario.
Observing them, yeah.
Okay, back to Ida. No, back to Ida about, okay, so the experience, yeah.
Correct. And so now I recall when you say that, we were going out and then they would learn, and taking scenes from observation and then bringing it back into the studio. So it was like out process, bringing into the indoor studio to work and put the choreography together. And then I think at the same time, it was simultaneously we were working, Sui Beng created the music and the songs, and the lyrics came from that process of in and out, or out and in, back again. And that was interesting. In the end, I think the second stage of it is when we actually had the script, had the music already, and just some of the same children who went for the first program were selected, and then they became the performers. And I think we worked that for about 2 months and then presented it indoor though. It wasn't an outdoor performance.
In a design school, right?
Yeah. So that was...
Were you involved in any of the others?
No, just Red
Only
and
Red
Go.
and Go Shoe.
But I think they shared, some of the children continued to the auntie uncle story. So they were already trained by us and then had a second, like a next.
Do you think that the way you worked with the children was like a new phase, a developmental phase from the earlier one, Stop, Look, Go?
As in the process or the
As
people?
in the process, as in the process, as in the way you were working with children and the way you were choreographing for children experientially from that first to
No, I
this
think
one.
it was a second step. You learned from the first and then you develop a little bit more. And it was easier also this time because there is a script, right? And you can reflect, whereas the scenarios to work on. The first one was challenging because then you have to create those scenarios. And
So what, if you could identify, if you try and identify very specifically, what would be a clear takeaway from the first one that helped you or enhanced this one? I'll let you think about that, and then I'll go to Xiaofeng. In trying to focus on, okay, so what did I learn from this one that now I use it in the second one, and therefore the process becomes better, or more, yeah. Okay, Xiaofeng, your involvement in these three. You were involved in all three?
No, only 2.
Only 2, okay.
Yeah, starting from the uncle auntie stories. So I was the co-producer for this Heritage Streets Festival. Yeah. Of course, Catherine was also involved as my co-director. So it was actually my first experience to actually produce a site-specific performance. It was never happened in my life. And like what Janet mentioned, there were a lot of issues dealing with heritage at that time. Yeah, people are stealing things, from the walls, from the houses, and then there was so much of oral histories out there, which nobody actually bothered about collecting them. I think that's why we actually produced the festival.
Can you share just some, from a production point of view? Because we seldom hear, we're always focusing on the creative process, but from a production point of view, a street festival, site specific, some of the logistical nightmares or, experiences where you think, okay, I'm going to die now. Because I've gone through many of those.
Okay. Well, it was actually a very traumatic experience for me as well. Yeah, because you have to deal with street lighting, but I think we actually had a very, very good team at that time. At some point, I would say we were quite lepa about having things done professionally. So because, it's completely outdoor, we always questions whether it will be rain or shine, on that day itself. And then we have children that we have to take care, because most of them, they are actually child or they are teenagers. Yeah, that's right. So we have to deal with the discipline issues. And there are a lot of logistic issues, like you have to communicate with the community for them to understand that you are doing a performance. And you are in fact, at that time, I felt that we are like going into people's place, using their place, and using their stories to perform. It was not really a very nice feeling at that time. Yeah, because from the feedback from the community, some of them actually were not very happy about it. But overall, it was quite a good performance.
So how did you deal with the fact that, say, some people were unhappy about it? How would you all negotiate that?
I just have to make friends with community. So that's our strategy. It's like, you constantly make friends with them, you talk to them, you have tea break with them, then after a while, after they make friends with you, they understand what you are trying to do, then they are very, very open about it. Yeah. So that's how we actually get to access the space. And we even got their support. Some of the neighbors, they were sponsoring drinks to the children, and they let us use their electricity. That's really amazing. Yeah, it's a very, very, again, a very rewarding experience.
Okay, I left you with a question.
What I took from the first one and
Into
then
the second
one. I think the learning curve that I managed to find a connection was that the word reinventing, how to bring the children to understand that. I mean, you have to invent because we don't have anything to fall back on. Of course, you can use the dance skills, but now it is about you. And then the second one, red and gold, is about watching taking it from observation. There is no traditional steps that I'm going to teach you here. I'm not going to teach you Zapin and you're going to do it. Now you have to observe their daily day and then reinvent it that pedestrian way in a more exaggerated and a sense of enlarging their performance. Not just in their how they present it, but also in the composition and choreography. So that just linking that and learning how to deal with opening their minds to this method, I think was helpful that I started up with the first program before going to Red and Gold, because it's a huge, I think, for someone like us who is just coming back and learning, it's a huge jump from conflict resolution and in a musical. And at the same time in KL, I was also already working with Christian and all that. So it was just a learning curve, I think, for me. But that was one thing that was very clear, how to get kids at that age and time, in the early 90s, to know what reinventing is all about. You have to, and when in school you are not taught this. So that was what we found, I think, and If we could actually book it down and actually have, terms and theories about it, that would be wonderful, because I think today young people don't have it anymore either, that process. In schools to try to reconnect with theatre and using theatre to express stories from outside and stories, in performance and body.
Okay, so last question for both, for Ida and for Xiao Feng. So you've been in, we talked about the first sort of phase, 1998 to 2000 and 2001, 2006. So this is almost 10 years of working, and then you carried on to several other projects. So, were there any takeaways, very specific methodologies, pedagogies, takeaways from these almost 10 years that then fed into your other work, not necessarily work in arts education, but just other work or, just generally in your own lives?
Well, I think I learned a lot, and I really used the methodology developed from Ida and Sui Bing and Janet a lot, especially I think between 2000 and between 2003 to 2006. We set up a multidiscipline group called Ombak, and we actually constantly
The three of us are the founders of
Yeah,
Ombak.
yeah. Well, it's swimming,
Storm in a
with
box,
swimming.
right?
Storm in a
Box
was also one of the
was the
products.
launch of
Yeah.
Ombak, no?
Yeah, that's right. Was the launch
We came
of
up
Ombak.
for that, yeah.
So we use that. We constantly use the same methodology to develop a lot of some other street performances. Site-specific stuff. Yeah. So there were Ronggang Merdeka. There were, I don't know, I can't remember. Anak Pulau Pinang, all this.
Cerita Pulau Pinang.
Ha,
Kisah Pulau Pinang.
Kisah Pulau
Yeah,
Pinang.
Kisah
Yeah,
Pulau
that's
Pinang.
right.
Right.
Yeah, so then
Kotai.
I was then trained as a young director at the time. So I actually use a lot of the methodology. So everything from 2003, starting from 2003 onwards. So we started to have this process-oriented workshop with the children before we produce a performance. So we actually use the methodology to collect oral histories, to provide skills, for the kids, and produce a performance.
Yeah. So that whole learning from, that's breaking down the process to research, giving time for children to go out and collect and interview and bring back, and then looking at it and then breaking it down either in drama or in the music or dance. That time period, giving time for that to happen is what we took from all the projects that we've been doing together. And I think I still use it if it was in a larger production, but as a daily day, I think my last process is with the arts at Sungai Pinang, and then I've not used that process anymore because there's not many works like that happening anymore. So, but
do you use those processes or methodologies in your own work as a choreographer
I
and
would do,
performer?
yeah. And this
Not
is
with
from-
children?
Not with children.
with your own
adult, performance.
And I think we were also struggling with collaborations, the process of collaborate together.
Yeah. What does it mean? How does it
Big
work?
What does it mean?
Yes.
Okay, we've got maybe 2 more minutes. I have one trick question. If there was one thing you could do differently over this 8-year period, what would you do differently?
What would I do differently?
We have some sniggers in the audience. Janet, if there's one thing you could do differently in this 8-year period, what would you do differently?
Nothing.
Yeah, that was kind of complete.
I don't know either. I constantly was asking myself, why are we doing street performance? Why are we doing community-oriented and issue-based performance. And I remember I also expressed this to Janet because I felt that sometimes the expectation from the artist or from the creator, the arts creators, is far more different from the expectation of the participants, you know, from the children, from the community. And you know, I'm always trying to, you know, struggling to find the balance. But until today, I would say I still do nothing about it because it's such a difficult question for myself. Yeah.
Ida, anything to add before we wrap?
I don't think it's about the form. The forms we were really working on it and developing it. I think it's more about if we should have thought about the sustainability of it, you know? The pool of performers, the young people, why didn't we keep them so that it keep growing, because it would come back into Penang. But right now, they're gone. We don't know where they are. So that whole project and working with all these young people and educating, none of them are back. Maybe
Well,
one or
Yong
two.
Xian
So
comes
few.
back
Yeah, oh,
and
Yong
does-
Xian. Only
Yay for Yong
one.
Xian. One last comment, Janet.
She has triggered. I think maybe an answer to that is that in Singapore and in Philippines,
Just
a lot
very
of the
quickly,
theatre
Janet.
and education troops actually have a youth wing. We never in Malaysia create a youth wing. I think maybe Five Arts is the only one that created Article 19 or something as a youth wing. But actually, a lot of the company, even Zhao Xinjiang and all, we never consciously created a youth wing.
Yeah.
But now all our youth in Five Arts are old already. And on that note, we shall wrap this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.